Welcome back to In Focus. 3 homeless residents in San Bernardino, California have filed a lawsuit against the city after workers reportedly evicted them from a park and trashed some of their belongings. In the lawsuit filed earlier this month, the plaintiffs, who are disabled, allege that city officials destroyed their essential items, including medications, medical records, and mobility devices. The lawsuit accuses the city of San Bernardino of violating their constitutional rights under the Americans with Disabilities Act, as well as the 4th, 5th, and 14th Amendments. Criminal defense attorney Bob Bianchi joins me now with more on this case. Bob, thanks so much for being back with us. It's great to have you.
It's great to be back. Thanks for having me.
So, Bob, the Los Angeles Times has reported that city officials announced that they would be temporarily closing the park back in May and then told the homeless that they would need to relocate. And according to the lawsuit, 15 homeless people requested help to move their belongings before the closure, but the city reportedly did not accommodate or respond to their request for assistance. So now those individuals are taking legal action and seeking punitive damages and compensation for the destroyed belongings. What is your takeaway here? Do the lawyers think the homeless people have more rights than rent-paying citizens? What is your takeaway?
Well, the facts are in dispute here because the city is saying that they did offer accommodations and they were trying to work with the attorneys. And then the next thing they knew, a lawsuit was filed against them. So, we'll have to determine what happened there because that's kind of important. I mean, obviously, if they came in and they told them they had to leave and then they just grabbed their stuff and disposed of it, medical devices, medicine, personal property of individuals, to me, that could be a little bit problematic. However, if in fact what the city says is correct, that we tried and offered opportunities and we did the best we could, but people were not in compliance and they just filed a lawsuit, that's another situation as well. So, I mean, as far as removing them from the location, I don't see any issue with that. It really is going to be whether or not they improperly disposed of the property. And as far as a punitive damages claim, I can't see that at all. That's just a thing lawyers throw into a lawsuit.
Okay, very interesting. Well, all I really know here is that the homeless situation has just worn out the tolerance levels of most Americans. I mean, the crisis is just so far out of control thanks to Gavin Newsom and other Democrat leaders. So there's definitely a reason this exodus of California is happening here. But anyway, let's move on to the next lawsuit. Progressive Insurance is now being sued for discrimination for offering grants to Black-owned businesses while excluding white, Asian, and Latinos from applying. Bob, what do you know about this one? Can you break it down for us? What's happening here and how do you see all of this unfolding?
Yeah, well, here you go. I mean, this lawsuit is essentially saying that Progressive was reverse discrimination, if you will, by not allowing those grants to be given to any other, other ethnic groups or minority or ethnic groups such as whites, Asians, and so on and so forth, and that is reverse discrimination. Now, this is an interesting case that I think really is being filed to see whether or not it can get up to a more conservative Supreme Court that has shown that it will reverse some longstanding precedent, quote unquote, and whether or not this in fact violates that part of the Constitution says you can't discriminate based upon class, age, race, gender, things of that nature. Now, traditionally, giving grants to minority-owned businesses is nothing new. It happens all the time. The government does it. The businesses do it. Progressive is doing it here. And there's been a tradition and a legal precedent that is not discrimination. So I understand your viewers may say, well, wait a minute, how can that not be discrimination if it's being based on race? And that is the argument that's being made in this lawsuit. I think they want to go to the Supreme Court to say, look, you need to relook at this. While it may be laudable that you want to give grants to traditionally depressed minorities that haven't had the same quote unquote advantages that other people have had, nevertheless, a strict constructionalist, a strict interpretation of the Constitution indicates that doing anything based on race, one way or the other, is unconstitutional. So to me, this is definitely an attempt to get this to the Supreme Court to see whether or not, like Roe, this is something that could be reversed.
Very interesting. Well, I guess only time will tell, and we'll be eager to see how it all pans out. I mean, I just got to say, I can't leave this portion without mentioning they call themselves progressive, right? So I guess that kind of gives you some insight there.
Flo is very upset right now.
Flo is very upset, yes. In other news, conservative writer and independent journalist Andy Ngo was just awarded a $300,000 payout after 3 people were supposed to defend themselves in court against a lawsuit that accused them of assaulting No, but they failed to show up. Bob, what do you think this says about the defendants, and what do you make of this situation?
This is a really interesting case. You have a situation where there was a trial, and No had lost the trial with 2 of the individuals that were sued, yet 3 of the individuals that were sued did not answer, did not follow the process. We've talked about this before in other cases, in fact. When you don't follow the process, a default is entered against you. In other words, the court says, well, essentially, if you don't counter what his complaint says, you're admitting to the facts that are alleged in that complaint. That's what's called a default. At one point in time, very late in the game, after the default was entered, there are times that courts will allow the vacating of a default to say, okay, well, we'll allow you to argue the case on the merits. But this court said, no, you waited far too long for that. So essentially, the only issue left in the case, once the 3 individuals did not answer the complaint and did not participate in the process, is really at that point, how much? And eventually the court awarded $300,000, and that's the answer. And he split it up equally amongst each of the 3 defendants who refused to answer the process. I mean, the bottom line is I just love this. There's multiple people that do this. For some reason, they think that this is a smart thing to do, but in the end, now they're going to pay the price. Why they wouldn't defend the case, which maybe they would have won. But when you don't argue the case, if you don't fight the case, if you don't participate in the process, you know you will lose. So it makes no sense to me.
Makes no sense to me either. I think it would have been handed to him, seeing as it was in Portland. So I think that was a loss on their end. But I don't know. I guess we'll never really know. Bob Bianchi, thanks so much for joining us today. I appreciate your time. Where can people find you for more?
Thanks. It's great to be back. R.Bianchi, ESQ on Twitter and Instagram. Thanks.
Thanks so much. Take care.
We'd like to welcome you to our new home for uncensored news and hard-hitting talk shows. If you're tired of cable companies and social media giants chipping away at your most basic and important right, freedom of speech, by shadow banning, demonetizing, censoring, and policing every single one of your posts, then One America News on Locals is just what you've been looking for. Finally, you'll have the freedom to express your point of view and stay connected with like-minded fellow patriots. And the best part is, OAN on Locals is only $5 a month. All of our credible, honest, unbiased reporting, ad-free talk shows, and exclusive content, all at the fraction of the cost of cable. So to watch, just click the join button to get the news you can't get anywhere else.